Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first Thursday podcast of the upcoming season. We are glad to be back. We, of course, are missing the standard host, Maka, who's probably off somewhere pounding a bottle of gin, filming Jesus, or doing something that a heathen would probably disagree with.
Or a combination of all of that.
Or a combination of all of them. I like to think he is drinking a bottle of gin while filming Jesus, thinking of heathens. Sounds like a great way to start a Thursday pod. But as always, joined by some of our regular guests, we will start by welcoming in our friend Scott Fish.
Hey, how are you doing, Gally?
I'm hanging in there, brother. How is North Carolina?
It is good. It's summer here, which means rain can start and stop any minute of the day. It means that it's hot and muggy, and I am just ready for some footy to encompass every minute of my weekend.
Beautiful. I can't wait, man. I'm excited. I had to come up with an excuse so I could cancel physical therapy for tomorrow so I could get as much work done so I could sneak the hell out and make sure I'm in the pub watching the match. Could really care less how the match goes.
Right.
Nobody.
Who needs a good knee when you can have football?
Exactly. That's what a couch is here for. And we will say hello to our friend Trevor down in Rhode Island. Trevor, how are you doing?
Doing all right. Drinking Belgian beers tonight because Ecuadorians are too expensive to import.
It is true. We will figure and we will get to that. Speaking of drinking, the host is with us. He's just not with us, and he wants us to know it's all of the above. So he is filming Jesus acting as a heathen and drinking some form of gin, probably out of a coffee mug.
Yeah.
While watching us, which is always the best. So, guys, we're gonna get right to it. We're gonna get right into it. We start most podcasts with trivia, except for the ones I host because that shit sucks. So we're going to come by reminding people that we want all of you to jump in and join the conversation. So we'll drop at some point later in this podcast. I will drop the link to the Discord channel. If you are a Discord user interested in, having a virtual pub to go ahead and talk to mates during the matches, after the matches, banter on transfers, off season, maybe even share what you're grilling that weekend, smoking on the smoker or the drinks, best TV shows. I mean, this is a great group right here. And if you're looking for that community and you don't have it locally, definitely jump in and check out the American Scouser Discord channel. I don't think you will at all feel like you are wasting your time in there until you get in an argument with me, and then you'll realize it is a waste of time because I am not going to back down from my point. Alan says, greetings from a roasting Houston. Good to know that Alan is still trying to make people jealous with the fact that he lives in the only state that has had summer this year. So, guys, we've talked a little Discord. We're going to get into transfers, but before we use the real deal meter, I thought I would just kind of start here with a pulse, right? I've been on every Monday night with Bickler and with Timuchin, which basically means I probably deserve a medal. But we've been on talking all summer long, transfers, rumors, what we can expect, what we don't. So before we get going, I thought it would be, fair to let you guys kind of weigh in a little bit here. Let's start positively, then we'll work our way to the negative. Then we'll get to some transfer news from today that I hope brings a lot of smiles to a lot of different faces. So where I would like to start is with you, Fish. And let's start with McAllister. He was the first one signed. I think we all will agree. Let's just get it out of the way. It's a ridiculously cheap fee.
Yep.
There was a weird clause. He wanted Liverpool and we didn't make Champions League. So it was like all the stars aligned, right?
Yeah.
So take the price out of it. What was your excitement level when it was first announced? What's your excitement level 48 hours before the match after watching him throughout the preseason?
Yeah, man. I mean, what a gem. And it's not even like it was an unearthed gem. I think that this is one of those signings that we can't necessarily say we've had in recent past, where even other teams are recognizing that we got a quality player. our own fans were excited. Other fans wished that he went to their team. This is an absolute stud. He has, hardworking factors meets with ingenuity and creativity, and it just looks like he's the type of mold that can be, put wherever we need him. But gosh, he's calm and cool and hardworking, and just everything from preseason that we've seen has been something that we've dearly missed from our midfield, for sure, the last couple of years. And to have that sort of intensity back in the engine room, along with a little bit of creativity that can lead to some scoring threat and assist profile, is incredible. Exactly what we needed. I was so pleased when we got him. And just from preseason, it looks like everybody's wildest dreams came true.
Speaking of my Monday co-host, he chimes in with, Jesus, how is it legal to have this much sex appeal on one show? Cripes. Thank you, Bickler, and don't worry, the check is in the mail. Yeah. So, Trevor, staying on the topic of McAllister, right? And you can feel free to weigh in on what your level of excitement was compared to maybe what it is now with the anticipation of the season. Where do you see his optimal and ideal position being within this midfield? Is it playing in the 8? Is it more a little withdrawn in the 6 like he was in, at times in the World Cup and at times with Brighton? How do you foresee him best being utilized? And what was your overall take of the signing as a whole?
Yeah, when it comes to the signing, I think the fact that it was that perfect storm of the clause with if it's a non-Champions League team, the price comes down, and his desire to come to Liverpool really just made everything come together very, very quickly. And that was awesome for me, because seeing him at Brighton and seeing him in the World Cup, you can tell this is a player that could very well handle that next step up in terms of domestic play. He could be that guy that could really change whatever team that he decided to go to. And I really think that for Liverpool, he's going to have the same kind of effect that Gakpo did, where he has that versatility, where you don't necessarily have to play him in the same spot every week. And with our roster being the depleted state that it is right now, having somebody like that, where if there is an injury or if there's something where you need to kind of shift things around, it makes things easier to have a guy like that you can just kind of plug and play. In terms of his optimal spot, I think having him kind of as that like second creative midfielder, having that guy that's not sitting back entirely, but can be that lever between the two halves of the field would be great, because he's that guy that can kind of just spread the ball out and get it into spaces where the guys that are being paid up front to make the goals, he can get them to them in the best spots possible. And I'm just excited to see what he can do with players that actually score a lot of goals, when he's not just trying to lump it up to Evan Ferguson. That's where my excitement's coming from.
Yeah, Bickler says McAllister is Genie's unmet potential. And I kind of understand where he's coming from there. I'll take it a different level. I won't even compare it to Genie. It's been so long now, and that just gets all Liverpool supporters just lathered up and angry. And tonight's not an angry show, people.
That's right. We're trying to be happy here.
Exactly. We'll get there. We'll get to that news. But I think with McAllister, and then I say that and then I go negative on my next comment. I think McAllister is in just 4 matches in the preseason, I think honestly shows that he's actually like gives you the idea of what Thiago was supposed to be. Someone with some industry, could do a little pressing, can do the work in the engine room, but was going to have this eye for the final pass or the unlocking pass. Like I think in the preseason, McAllister only had 1 assist, the through ball to Jota with the great turn, but he had like 4 times where he made the pass that broke the play that created the goal.
The hockey assist.
Yeah, and the hockey assist is exactly right. And I think he sees a pass that maybe we thought Thiago would be coming in to see and break down the low press and do these different things. And you make a great point about how he can play in all the positions. I think McAllister will probably start in the 6 at Chelsea on Sunday, and that's not what's optimal for this team. I think when Curtis Jones is starting, he'll probably be on the left where he plays the best, and McAllister will be on the right. And then I think a lot of times when Szoboszlai starts, he'll be on the right, be a little bit more advanced, and McAllister will be on the left. And just like Brighton. Now, where I'll take you a little bit to task there, passing the ball to Neil Mopai and passing the ball to, just the industrious Danny Welbeck that just hasn't had a great year since he was, at United, let alone his time at Arsenal. Those are one things. I think Evan Ferguson, saying we lump the ball up to a 19-year-old kid who someday is probably going to lead the line for like United or City. He is a big talent. If he wasn't coming off injuries, someone would have paid 70, 80 million for Evan Ferguson right now. But I don't disagree with you. I think having McAllister, there's a big difference when it's Mo Salah making the run compared to, Danny Welbeck or even Sully March. I know he had a great year and all, but these are a different level of player. I also, though, do think that we have to get to a point where he can quickly start to play in a natural position, which will happen once there is a number 6 in, and we will get to that. But before we go there, we've touched on the one signing so far this season. Obviously, we have the second signing in Dominic Szoboszlai. Came out of nowhere, made nobody happier than our very own Megan from our American Scouser team. She's been talking about the player since he was at Salzburg, that we should get the guy. Every time he'd be rumored, everyone in the chat would just be like, that is just ridiculous. There's zero chance. And then about an hour and a half later, they were like, and there's this chance that they're going to pay 70 million for one player today, which was a really exciting time for us. Obviously, it's a great signing. I feel like his upside might be a little bit higher. He's a little younger, has a bigger profile. So I'll start with you, Fish. Thoughts on Szoboszlai? Do you have some concerns, though, that he's probably going to be rushed on a little faster than we probably would have liked based on the fact that we had a couple of outgoings we didn't anticipate?
To start off with, my initial reaction, for all of the excitement that Megan had, I had the complete opposite. I just had no, prior knowledge to him.
Okay.
I had very little time watching the Bundesliga. The only time I ever watched Salzburg was when we were playing them in the Champions League. And the reality was that when we have players, Naby Keita may be one thing, but when we have players coming from the Red Bull industry, it appears as though they have the typical attacking prowess that we expect here on our team. And from what I've seen from him just in preseason, everything that McAllister has had in terms of silky smooth and in terms of being able to see passes and see, movement, I can see that in Szoboszlai, but it looks like Szoboszlai is kind of like a wild card. It's you don't quite know if he's going to try to take on 3 men. You don't know if he's going to try to put a ball through the middle. His delivery has been excellent from set pieces and from, live play. And it really shows that he can be a very important facet. In terms of if he's getting rushed in, that's a captain of an international team right there. The man is prone to, getting thrown in the fire. And if it means that he needs to start quick, maybe that's exactly what he needs. Because frankly, we can use it as a team. And while maybe we didn't want him starting all the games in the very beginning of the season, I think that he's the type of person that can show that he could take that on his shoulders and run for sure.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think that when they purchased him, and the plan was to purchase him, I genuinely believe he's the long-term replacement for Jordan Henderson in their eyes, and not as captain, but in that right side of the defense or right side of the midfield. A little bit more attacking, completely different player profile. Don't get me wrong. But I think that was his role. And I think had Henderson not left, unsacrimoniously so quickly, like, if in such kind of shocking the night, right? Like kind of like middle of the night. Basically, last time something like this happened, like the Colts rolled up out of Baltimore and showed up in Indianapolis. The people woke up in Baltimore and like, what the bleep just happened? We got to root for a Cleveland Browns team someday? That's some shit. But I mean, if you really look at it, like, I do believe it would have been a slow betting in process, because I think you're spot on. And I think Timuchin's talked about it a lot in the Monday podcast. As much as you can see the flashes of brilliance in the player's skill set, outside of the set pieces and a little bit of pressing, he really has kind of struggled at times at knowing when to press, when not to press. He's in the wrong positions, which is normal, even for a player coming out of a place like Red Bull that is a Hungarian international. He's got it. He needs time to learn the system. He needs time to learn the speed of the league.
And I think that he definitely needs that time, and he may not have the luxury of having that time outside of the first 11 on the field on a game day. But, at the same time, we've been critical of the midfielders that we've had being in the wrong position, pressing or pressing too high or pressing too deep or having any sort of, issues not being able to run. So put his youth with his, excitement or desire to be as good as we think he could be. I think it is a good match.
And Trevor, do you see it being down to one? Like, let's just assume we're going to sign a 6, and we're going to talk a little later about who that 6 might be. Yeah. And all the different reports coming out today and currently being dropped in our chat, which I love and I asked for. So ask for something, you will get it. But do you basically see it down at this point to whoever that new 6 is will be locked into that starting position in our top 11? McAllister is locked into the starting 11. I think he's been our standout player, in my opinion, maybe outside of Mo through the preseason. Is it really down to Szoboszlai and Jones fighting for that last spot, with then Thiago giving you that like veteran presence from the bench to give you a relief or, come on and change a game late? Do you think it's down to Jones and Szoboszlai for the final starting spot week in, week out?
Yeah, and I think it will come down to form to see who comes through. I don't think Klopp is a guy that will force somebody in because of a price tag. They won't see that Szoboszlai is, he's the big money man, so he has to play over Curtis regardless. Because also we're talking about with Szoboszlai is his things where he's always running, he's unpredictable. That's something that you need over there if we're going to keep deploying Trent the way that we want to this year, because you're going to have that guy that needs to run everywhere and just do it with reckless abandon, because that's something where when Henderson wasn't at his top, having that cover when Trent would bombard forward just made that entire side of the field just a playground for the opposition. And if Szoboszlai can be that guy with his youth, with his exuberance, with his engine that we keep talking about, a guy that can just run 90 minutes and not even look winded, that's something that you have to kind of harness and see if we can kind of get him to just slowly put the blinders on and be like, okay, it's great that you want to do everything, but we have to have you do these things really good first before you kind of just get let out into the fields. I think that, and as Curtis showed at the last part of last season, he's a guy that can go on a run. He's a guy that can have 3 or 4 really good games in a row, but he can also have 3 or 4 absolute freaking stinkers in a row. So that side has to be purely based on form. And I think coming into the year, if Szoboszlai is healthy, because he's still a little banged up, maybe Curtis gets that start off the rip against Chelsea. But I don't think it's something where it's going to be this guy is here, and whereas everywhere else you said, I think those are pretty much set in stone.
Yeah, we'll talk about the lineups and what we think when we do the preview to the Chelsea match towards the end of this, towards the end of tonight's podcast. I think to kind of wrap up here the summer business, I do, forget we all knew the players were leaving. We knew Milner was probably on his way out. We knew it was time for Ox, Keita, and unfortunately, it was announced to us last season that Bobby would be moving on. Let's take the players that left on a free aside. The players that we have sold. Let's start with Fabinho. And we're going to touch on this pretty quick. So I'm going to ask you each to kind of give me just kind of like your 60-second kind of thoughts on the Fabinho out. Do we have to do that deal? Did you find it good business? Did you think it was maybe irresponsible to make the move without having a direct replacement already lined up, seeing that we are, I think, 8 or 9 days since, and the season starts in 48 hours?
I think that these things happen in football. I think that, football has the business side of things that go well beyond and influence what happens on the field. The players, the fans can root for, that's only what happens on the field. When it comes to who's at the coach's disposal, a lot of times it's out of the fans' hands. It's out of the coach's hands. Sometimes it's even out of the players' hands. A lot of players recognize that they're maybe asked to leave. And when we're offered 40 million pounds for a player that, admittedly looked a leg back last year, I just see that as good business, whether we had a replacement or not in hand.
I completely agree with you. I think it was a no-brainer. It had to be taken. We profited off a player who won the lot for us, changed the whole system, but it hadn't been good. And it wasn't just a season. It was about 18 months. Yep. And he wasn't healthy during that span either. So for me to get that kind of money was a godsend. Trevor, real quick, your thoughts on Fabinho. Was the business had to be done? Would you have liked to have seen it handled differently?
Yeah. In terms of the business, getting the money they got for him in the state that he's in is incredible. It's a timing more than anything. It's something where the Saudi money and the way their spending spree came a bit too late in the summer. If we were having these conversations about Henderson and Fabinho a month ago, I don't think there would be as much trepidation and kind of just sideways vitriol towards those guys. There would be like, okay, they're getting the bag, they're doing that, and we can kind of reinvest. It's just the timing of it. It's as close to the season as it is, and the saga that we're going to talk about with kind of finding those replacements has made it kind of seem worse than it actually is.
Yeah. So you made a comment there. I don't know that there would have been any different feeling or fallout based on Jordan Henderson leaving, whether it happened the first day the transfer window started, the last minute of the transfer.
He was a bit different. The Fabinho one was something where like, okay, you get that, but Hendo to Saudi Arabia, that's its own separate street.
I think we could have our own podcast, probably talk about the emotional side of things, and we could also talk about his political things and what it means for his legacy and what it really meant. What it means for Steven Gerrard to come poach Liverpool's captain in the middle of a summer. They had no intention to let him go. I mean, there's a ton of undertones here. You could probably do a big, documentary Johnny Manziel style, and you'd probably walk out of it feeling dirty watching it, feeling bad for someone that doesn't deserve anyone to feel bad for him, with no contrition or retreat. I think I am going to struggle with the Henderson thing for a long time because I went to the wall defending the player the entire time he was here for his man management, his skills, and his leadership. And I feel like in the greatest moment for him to actually show that, he really destroyed it. And for me, it'll never take away what he did at the club, but you leave a mark on your time here that I think could have been left as one of the greatest periods in the club's history. And I think when you're the captain and you walk out and you put the the things you put out there and the additional stuff that comes with going to Saudi Arabia as the place. He didn't go back to Sunderland and walk out and say, I just want to go play. He walked out and basically said, I don't want to fight for my spot. And I'm never going to give him a pass on it. We got to move on here because we got positive things to talk about. And those positive things are not the shitty Cleveland Browns. So where I'd like to go herein is to the good old, very likely, the real deal bullshit meter that we have used.
Meter doesn't lie.
The meter doesn't lie. So when we start talking about the midfield trio that we've been basically linked with in and out for the last few weeks, let's just start with the Lavia scenario in itself. Taking out today's breaking Caicedo news, which we will get to in a little bit more detail. Over the last week, have you been frustrated with the club's handling of the Lavia pursuit? Have you seen it as solid business? Trevor, we're going to start with you on this one, because I have to say, I always saw it as they kind of knew Southampton didn't want to sell. They were willing to pay at their price, but not overspend. But at the same time, I feel like they almost turned the kid's head, which when you're working with a 19-year-old kid, I think is somewhat irresponsible by the buying club as well. So, Trevor, starting with you, the Lavia saga, how it's rolled out. Liverpool doing great work. Liverpool basically showing that they really don't have a plan right now in the transfer market.
Yeah. And as when you guys were talking about it on the Monday show, I put in the comment is it makes me feel like there's somebody trying to snipe a bid on eBay. We're sitting there going, okay, they've put the buy it now is at 50. And they're like, oh, will you take 38? Obviously not. Will you take 41 and a half? No. Will you take 47? How many more bids are you going to put in? You know the reserve. Just stop wasting my time. You're spamming my email box. I'm deleting all of them. Just get in the ballpark before we can have an adult conversation. And there just hasn't been that with this whole thing. And that's where your comment of maybe they didn't really want him this entire time, and it was something where they just kind of wanted it to be out there. Anytime there's a guy that we're super linked to, it usually doesn't come to fruition, and it runs up something on somebody else, Chelsea. And that maybe it was just some weird oh yeah, no, in all the worst ways. But
yeah, Bickler chimes in with Trevor is a man who knows his way around eBay. I respect it. And I was going to give Trevor a little shit here because we thoroughly enjoyed that analogy and gave you big props on the Monday pod, reusing it 72 hours later as if it was almost still a new concept. Little used. Got to think of it.
I play the hits. I play the hits.
I do. I don't blame you. I think Fish here, what were your thoughts on Lavia when you woke up this morning and we were saying to ourselves, hey, it's the Friday before the season, and other than Harry Kane getting sold, we better sign ourselves a 6 and just pay Southampton what they need to pay before any of the Caicedo reports came out. Where were you on Lavia? Paul Bickler says up here a little while ago, when we were talking about who starts, he says, I don't think Lavia starts out of the gate. I think he beds him in slowly, and McAllister plays the 6 until Jones form a double pivot. So, where did you fall on Lavia? Some feel he was ready to walk into any side in the Premier League. Others feel he's years away.
I can't believe I'm saying it, but I agree with Bickler. Because the fact is that, we were looking at the profile of player that we needed. And while Lavia is an incredible talent, I don't think that he is the seamless fit into the starting 11, plug him in, and let's get rolling. I think that our business with him, if he was truly a target, has been irresponsible. I think that it has been almost laughable, where this isn't quite James Ward-Prowse for Southampton, meaning a talent getting of age in the championship that they're willing to make a full profit on. When they sell Lavia, they have to give a check to Manchester City. So they have a set price that they want the money for, and they are not willing to go below that price. So for us to get closer and closer, I saw a post earlier today that said Liverpool raised their bid by a 50-pence coin and a untouched jar of Nutella, and that's basically what we're inching towards. I think that it's a bad look for our team, but if, like Trevor mentioned, if this is, something that we deemed a possibility to kind of be a smoke and mirrors while we're looking at other targets that maybe are more suited for our team. For example, the news of going for Caicedo that I woke up to this morning after I read Harry Kane was reached an agreement between Spurs and Bayern. I was genuinely shocked and genuinely excited, because that is the exact profile of player that we need in Caicedo.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I'm one who actually rates Declan Rice. I've said it for a long time. I like the player. I think he's very good. I think he's an exceptional player, not a good player. And I think he'll become a world-class player at Arsenal. That said, I think Caicedo is right at the level of Declan Rice. And the only 6 in the world, maybe better than either of them, is Rodri. And I will stand behind that. And, as much as it pains me, Casemiro is really good, even as what looks like a really old, overweight Brazilian that just waddles around the pitch, but also waddles to every right spot. But I just think when you look at this side and you genuinely understand what they're looking to do. So for those of you who don't know, there were the bids for Lavia. The report came out late last night. It's reputable, honestly, when David Ornstein reports it. In London, it's happening. He's getting that information from clubs. He's not a player guy. He gets real info from the clubs. That Chelsea had made a improved bid that was bigger than Liverpool's for Lavia. Mm-hmm. And then coupled with the news, you hear later that they've, exercised the release clause for Tyler Adams, meaning they're bringing in kind of an understudy and to the point, a second player to go along with Lavia play in that midfield. And then the bombshell comes out that Liverpool has, basically said, okay, you want to sign our guy, we'll go sign yours. And now Brighton saying they're going to sell to the highest bidder. So, Trevor, I'm going to start with you on this one. I know my level of excitement is at honestly, right now, it's basically at a all-time high for this summer, because I've been talking about signing this player since I think January of 2021, after he had been at Brighton for about 4.5 weeks. Because I've loved this player. I watch him play for Ecuador. I see him play, internationally. I just seen him as a player that was really new. He was an up-and-coming one. And Liverpool were scouting him when he was playing in South America, like every player we ever spend 8 times too much for later. So
right.
When it comes to this player and the idea of literally breaking an all-time English transfer record and just busting out the gate, is this posturing by Liverpool to try to make sure they acquire Lavia? Or do you think they're genuinely putting themselves out there saying, we've identified a player, we want this player, we're going to go get this player?
I truly hope it's the latter, because Caicedo is a guy that I think could really be a cornerstone, and something that this team has lacked in recent years is that initiative of, all right, it may seem a bit petulant of, as you put before, oh, you want to sign our guy, we're going to sign yours. But if this was, as I was trying to put it, if it was something where this was kind of the backup plan in the foreground, that makes any sense. Where like, yeah, we were talking to this guy, and that's the thing that's been public. But what we really wanted to do this entire time was here. So when this blew up, oh no, oh woe is us. What are we gonna do? And then Caicedo is just right there. Then bravo, you
Right.
swerved us.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I'll take that kick in the tuchus from that. That's fine by me. But I really hope it's not something where they're trying to just save face. I hope this was kind of you took the wrong exit and you had to loop back around to where you really wanted to go. That's what I'm hoping it is. But with this new kind of regime and like the management structure, I don't have that feel yet of whether or not that.
This is
Yeah,
where
we're
I
gonna have to
interrupt
stop
you.
you, Trevor.
This is where I interrupt you because, and I swear to God, I got to do a show with you right after this, Matoush. And if I find out this is another one of these fake ass tweets, like you questioned earlier, but we have right here breaking news on the American Scouser Thursday Night Podcast, because this is saying that we have reached an agreement between Brighton and Liverpool for 110 million. 110 million will become an English record, the highest amount ever spent on a player, I believe. But I want to just go here first because this means the agreement, and we saw this today, right? Bayern and Spurs had an agreement at 9 a.m. this morning, English time. Harry Kane didn't agree to that move until about 4 to 5 p.m. our time. So what I'm basically asking you now, Fish, we know that there's an agreement between the clubs.
Yep.
Is there any trepidation to the fact that this player at one point actually came out and said, I only want to move to Chelsea. My heart is in Chelsea. For all accounts, he had bought a home or a new condo in London near the training grounds. Like he was forcing this through the way that guys used to like show up at the opponent's training ground on January 31st, thinking they were going to make that shit happen on Sky Sports in the background by waving. Yeah.
I'm processing it all right now, and obviously, Megan's
and
right.
Now I know it's real.
Fake.
Megan's weighed in.
Fabrizio Romano, super journalist, says,
we got the here we go.
Accept it. And
we
Chelsea
do
did not
have a here we go
proposal so far at this stage. And he said agreement on personal terms is now being sealed with a deal to be expected and completed on Friday.
I will say
reality
this.
That's shocking.
I'm saying this right now. Me and Fish, we need to be on during transfer season on Thursday nights because we also broke on this podcast that Luis Diaz was coming to Liverpool, and it was because we saw some stupid ass tweet by a journalist in Colombia, and we were dumb enough to actually run with it, and we were proven right about an hour and a half later.
Yep.
Megan is also chiming in with all the good news that personal terms aren't an issue either, and I just want to let everyone know I literally might not be able to do the fantasy show tonight because in all seriousness, I don't know that I'm going to be able to stop the giddiness that is rolling through me right now.
I'm shocked. I genuinely am shocked.
This is genuinely a big moment, and this is a statement by the club. So here we're going to spin this, and we got to talk about this week's match because they'll kill me if we don't talk about it. But this is the biggest news in Liverpool right now, right?
For sure.
There was a little scuttlebutt earlier, like if you knew we were going to spend 70 on Szoboszlai and you knew we were going to spend 110 on Caicedo, and you were going to spend 35 on McAllister, shouldn't you have spent the 135 it would have cost to get Bellingham and bring in your 10-year ace? For me personally, if you had told me we could have McAllister if you told me that we could have McAllister and Bellingham, or we could have these three and actually have more, I think it's actually a bigger, massive signing like Paul is saying right now. This is absolutely massive. I personally think in some ways it might be a blessing that Bellingham didn't push all his eggs into the basket with us, because I think that could have been one where we ended up signing one, thinking we had Fab and Hendo, and literally ended up being barren by having one great superstar instead.
Yeah, for sure.
We turned over Thiago, Henderson, and Fabinho, and at some point in like 2 or 3 weeks, it's going to be Caicedo, McAllister, and Szoboszlai, with Curtis Jones as your fourth, if not your first starter. Thiago is 5, and Elliott and Bajcetic. This really changes everything.
We can be critical. We were critical of the business this summer. I think I was speaking critically of the business for Lavia minutes before, a agreement is shown. The reality is if this was in the works throughout the summer, this was masterful planning, and no one, not even Liverpool fans of the highest optimism, could honestly believe that we would be willing to spend that much money on a player.
Matus has weighed in. Cancel the show. Hour-long Caicedo reel. I'm going to tell you
to, but I need you guys for fantasy.
I am going to apologize to everyone, because we had a great turnout. We had like 5 or 6 people send their teams in to be revealed and reviewed tonight, which is really cool. That's a new segment. Trevor would be in our contributors league if he'll ever complete a team and put it in. We'll find out if that happens.
It's been a rough week.
It better happen soon. It's going to be real rough.
It's going to happen tonight, I swear.
All right. But ultimately,
if I wasn't on my phone, I'd be doing it right now.
I'm surprised you're not trying to, but you'd probably unmute yourself and remute yourself and then def us. But the real what's going on here,
it'd be bad.
We were going to talk about defensive reinforcements, but there is no reason to complain about center back signings. Hopefully we still get one. This guy would be great. Young Inacio, left-footed center back, plays out of Portugal, super talented, has a release clause, can also play on the left fullback if we need it. And he would be the heir apparent for Virgil. He has pace. He can play the high line. That said, we are not going to whine and cry about spending another dollar if it is true. And Liverpool has spent 110 million.
This is a happy podcast.
It sure is. Yeah. So we're going to keep it happy.
Keep the happy sauce flowing.
I mean, as happy as you can be when you have to talk about Chelsea. So let's not focus at all about Chelsea here. We don't have enough time left. There was just too much excitement and too much breaking news. I genuinely made that joke in the Discord channel to please keep the comments coming. And I never in a million years thought we would get what we got through that program. That was outstanding. So Sunday morning, we will be doing pre and post-match shows. Check us out, Facebook, YouTube. We'll be on Twitter. Jump in with your comments, just like we do here on our Monday and Thursday night podcast. The fantasy shows, they're all interactive. They are about you, the listener, the supporter. That's why we do this. The match on Sunday, 11:30 a.m. on Peacock. Thanks for not putting it on regular TV so we can all be 30 seconds behind each other as we chat and talk about it. Appreciate you for that, USA and the Premier League folks. But Sadu, you are real late, but don't worry. There'll be a fantasy show, and we will keep talking about Moises Caicedo coming to Liverpool. That's right, my friend. Moises Caicedo coming to Liverpool.
It's a crossover.
I'm just going to keep saying it every second until I wake up tomorrow, and then I'm going to look, and hopefully it's still there real.
I am still dreaming, just like Baker.
Give me, I think we all agree, right? The back five will be the back five that we anticipate it to be. So let's not even really work there for the concept. I just want everyone to know this will be the last time God ever blesses Gally. Maka could film a show and God wouldn't be blessing Gally, but I appreciate it. And so does my mom, who still wishes I was a young Italian Catholic. But we're going to go in here and really look at that front three. Let's start there. Fish, who's starting up top for you, and quickly, why?
I think that the front three, while as dynamic as it could be with Nunez in it, I think that the preseason has showed that our passing is most successful when we have Jota and Diaz up pairing with Salah. I think that just the movement off the ball, I think that the quick passing interchange on the left wing has shown that it's been really fantastic. I think that it will be Jota through the middle and Diaz on the left. Although that being said, it can be incredibly fluid and it can be transitioning from each position between the two. Also, I think that Nunez still has something to prove, and he'll be more than happy to prove that coming and scoring off the bench.
Yeah, we talk about it a lot on the Monday podcast, and I don't love Nunez as much from the bench because I think he is a high energy guy who sometimes comes a little too wound up and he's trying to do stuff, and I like, it's that mentality, like it's.
Of course,
you're pent up with energy and then you just let him go. Now, I also think that if he can hone that and kind of figure out how to make that work for him, he could be an extremely impactful sub until it's his time to earn his spot. I agree with you, by the way. As good as Gakpo is, I thought he was our best player from January forward. And I wouldn't be shocked if Gakpo starts through the middle and Jota starts on the wing, just to purely give Diaz a little bit more time before a full 90-minute run out. There are going to be a lot of matches coming in a quick amount of time. But I think at times we've seen what Diaz does so well there. And Diaz's pace will require Reece James to stay back a little bit. Because what people don't realize right now is Chelsea, they don't want to be, but they're a counter-attacking team. So we need to get our midfield right, and we need to make sure our press is right. So I could see Jota on the left, possibly even Gakpo through the center. But I do agree with you. I think if I were betting on it, I would bet it's Jota through the center. Jota looks so good in preseason.
Man, he's looked incredible.
Mo's looked great. Obviously, we know Mo's starting. So, Trevor, throw it at you. Are you starting Gakpo? Which of the two are you starting between Gakpo, Diaz, and Jota?
I personally think Diaz is a guy that wouldn't have that problem coming off the bench, but I think just with what he's been doing in just his industry throughout the preseason, that it's a term that I overuse, the industry, but he's a guy that just never quits on a play, and that is something that I think Klopp wants from the get-go, and he does, even though that's going to be great as a bench player. I think that's something that Klopp wants to just have from the start. And as much as Nunez, I want him to start just to kind of like get those reps. I think it's going to be Diaz on left, Jota. I agree with you guys. I think it's going to be Jota up the middle because if anything, it's what I was talking about before with Szoboszlai and Jones. It's a meritorious. You're getting that start because of everything that you've done, and then Mo on the right, Diaz on the left, and have those guys come off the bench, but be like, this is not a demotion. This is, I need you to give me a half an hour of hell, and I need you to punish Chelsea when they finally break out of their counterattacking mold and they want to try to go for something little crazy late on, and then you go and put two past them late, and then we fucking put this shit to bed.
Yeah, it's exciting time. So obviously, even if the deal really does get done tonight, they do medicals tomorrow.
He won't play.
He might be able to. A guy signed on Friday could be registered on Saturday. He could make the bench. I can't see him ever starting a match with a training session or two. Not in our system. Just midfield, real quick, guys. We only have about 5 minutes left overall, and I do want to let you guys give your predictions on air, so mainly me and Maka can cut that shit up and ridicule you in the May. But midfield, Fish, we'll start with you.
Yeah.
Who starts at the base?
I think that you said it earlier, and I agree with you. I think for the sake of quality and ingenuity, and also having, most importantly, a full preseason, I think that McAllister starts in the 6. I think that'll give us enough structure, at least for the time being. And while it may not be where we want him to be, we know that he can play that position effectively.
And then would you say then, and then is it also probably Jones and Soboslai at this point? It's not really, it kind of picks itself based on.
I think it could pick itself. One thing that I will say is that while Gakpo may not have been the most connected in terms of our passing up top, I think that he has looked one of our fittest players in the preseason. And I think that him playing in a deeper midfield role, like you said, to give that support for Diaz is not out of the picture. So I think Soboslai definitely starts and one of Jones or Gakpo.
Okay. I could see that later in the year. And I think against a lot of teams, we are going to see the 4 attackers. And I think that's going to be a big part of how they rotate. And, and in those matches where, they're starting 4 attackers, those might be the games where Nunez is actually given the nod. And then Jota comes in to change the formation and change the plan around. I just feel like a team like Chelsea that might pack it in a little bit. It's going to try to hit you on the counter. I just don't see us play one of our flair guys in the midfield in that type of match, especially without a Caicedo-like destroyer. And that's the difference. When you have Caicedo playing behind you, hell, if I knew we were going to have Caicedo, I would have said, don't send Fabio Carvalho out on loan.
I just remembered all over again. I just remembered all over again that we got him, and I just got happy again. I just got excited.
It's just such a good thing. We are gonna jump off the match. I just want real quick, right? Final score, Scott, Sunday, 1:30 in the afternoon Eastern.
Absolute season classic, 3-2 win away at Stamford Bridge.
Trevor,
I'm sticking with the hits. 3-2 good guys. The 2 goals we give up are stinkers.
I'm gonna say. I think I said 2-1 on Monday. I don't remember anything now because all I know is that I came into this pod saying,
"Yeah, we got
excited about
it with the Men in Black fucking neuralizer."
Yeah, and then I left the pod with Moises Caicedo, and now I really don't know what I'm thinking. So guys, real quick, I'm gonna start with you, Trevor. Top 4 in order. Who finishes there? Quick.
City 1, us 2, Arsenal 3, United 4.
Fair. Fish.
City 1, Arsenal 2, us 3, United 4.
So I'm going to admit the news of tonight's podcast has flipped 2 places for me in this. It has not done the Timuchin shuffle and pulled me all the way to the front. I can't, claim Kazi was telling me we were going to win the league before we signed Lavia, let alone now that we got Caicedo. He's probably got us winning the league to the point where the aliens are coming down from Space Jam and it doesn't even matter. We're still winning.
We don't lose a single game, brother.
Kazi may not drink. He's surely on something.
Exactly. I'm going to go out there and say I still think City wins this league this year. I think Liverpool now finishes second, Arsenal third. And I will say United finishes 4th, but I think it's going to be really, really tight between them, Brighton, and Newcastle. And I really think it'll be interesting. Alan, as usual, from Houston, Debbie Downer, calling for a 2-2 draw. Pretty sure that if Alan's predictions were right every week, we would finish every single season with 38 points because he calls us to have a draw every single week.
Alan forgot that this podcast is a happy podcast.
Exactly. This is a happy place.
Alan, your negativity is why my plant died.
So 3 teams that will not be so lucky to sign Moises Caicedo or finish in the top 4. Who are those 3 teams that'll be in the championship next year? Scott, we'll start with you.
As much as I would like to say Everton, I think that there are other teams in worse positions than them.
Great.
I see Sheffield being the very tippy bottom. I see Luton being right behind them, and I see Wolves not having enough.
And Trevor, 3 to go down.
Same 3. Everton's the unflushable turd.
I really feel that people are going to be solely disappointed this year because I actually think they're going to finish somewhere between 12 and 14. I don't think they're going to actually be in a week or 2 to go fighting for their lives. I think they're not that good, but they're a little healthier. They've made a couple good signings. It sounds like they're going to make a couple more. And I do think a full year of, Sean Dyche's disgusting dark arts.
Dog shit football.
Nah, but listen, dog shit football.
It gets with dogs. I came off a bit harsh, but it does what it does.
So, I actually am similar with you guys. I too have Luton and Sheffield United going down. I think Bournemouth is actually having an amazing transfer window. I think Bournemouth really hurt themselves by letting Gary O'Neill go. And I think, honestly, the reason I will take Wolves to pip them by just the slightest of margins is I think they have the better manager. I think they have the better manager who understands how to operate in England. And I still think that with Huang, the young Portuguese kid, Sarabia, Cunha, and
Fabio
most
Silva,
important, and Fabio said that was a young Portuguese kid. I couldn't remember his name. And most importantly, if Neto can get back to somewhat of the form he had pre-injury, they have enough to just stick it out. Now,
but how many of those guys do they sell?
They got to sell. I know they got to sell some more players. But I'm listen. If you want me to sit here on this podcast and tell you that something positive is going to happen to Bournemouth, you clearly haven't been paying attention to me or my takes for the last year to 5. Right? Like nobody. I think I basically did a preview show last year, and Timushin was like, "You are upsetting all the Bournemouth fans," and my response was, "All 5 of them here in the United States can send me an email tonight." And you know what I got? I got no comments and no results because there aren't even 5 of them. So we're going to wrap it up on that, guys. Thank you for an amazing show. A great time.
Thank you.
We broke some news here. We got excited. We will be back in 10 minutes. I
got to go make my team.
Yeah, you got to go do a damn team and jump back in. But, guys, join the American Scouser Cup. But, as always, please like, share, comment. Yep. If you're watching us on YouTube, please give it a subscription. It goes such a long way.
The buttons.
If you have friends that you know would be engaged or enjoy this, if you think they would hate it, invite them to watch. We want all the feedback. We want all the people to come in. In and out, guys. We kicked off Thursdays. We had energy. Awesome job. I'm really excited. Happy to be here. I will be back next Thursday filling in for Maka. I think next Thursday, Trevor, you're back with me. Brian Shelton will be in. Fish, it was great to do a show with you again.
Yep,
good job, my buddy.
Thank you for the wonderful excitement tonight.
Let's just let's wrap this thing up as we always
breaking news gods up top.
Breaking news. I waited all my life for this, people, to break some goddamn news. Whether or not it was just wind, we'll figure that out. But by morning, Moises Caicedo in red, people. Then we can start talking about what number should he wear. All right, everyone. Have a good night. We will see you all next week.
Up the